In the towering realms of mountains around the world lay treasures of epic proportions, caves that harbor legendary beasts, and remains of lost civilizations from thousands of years ago. Gear up for a wild adventure as we ascend some of the world's most fascinating hills, unveiling the most mysterious things discovered in mountains. The Untersberg Mountain. For centuries, hundreds of people have gone missing around the Untersberg Mountain, a massive natural monument sitting on the border between Germany and Austria. One of the most infamous incidents takes us back to 1987, when 3 men stepped into a cave located on this mountain to explore its precarious depths, but never emerged. Hours soon turned into days, and days into weeks, but the men were nowhere to be found. A search party scoured the entire area, but only found their car parked nearby, with no traces of the men, and after several weeks of searching, the rescuers began to give up. However, 3 months later, relatives of the missing persons received a shocking phone call from the 3 men, who claimed they had mysteriously found themselves on a ship in the Red Sea, far away in Alexandria, Egypt. The men had no recollection of what had happened after they entered the mountain, how the past 3 months had passed, or how they found themselves on the other side of the world with no passports or money. Their stories soon spread around the world like wildfire, but as captivating as it is, it's not the only bizarre phenomenon recorded at this peak. Years after the Second World War ended, a hiker found a group of men dressed in military gear living in the mountains. They claimed they were SS soldiers hiding from the war, unaware that it had ended decades prior. Trapped in the caves where time stands still, the men wasted years while their families believed they'd become casualties of war. But then, the mountain is also famous for its affiliation with the Nazi dictator Adolf Hitler, who considered it a very spiritual place where he could draw the power to rule the world. Hitler spent a great deal of time at Untersberg, and is believed to have practiced some occult rituals within its caves. In addition, several other hikers have been declared missing after venturing up the Untersberg mountain, like the 1738 case of Michael Hulsager, who mysteriously vanished only to return at his own memorial 1 year later, as well as another legend where an entire wedding party disappeared in the mountains, only to emerge 100 years later. The Valley of the Headless Men. Canada's Nahanni National Park is known by a more terrifying nickname, the Valley of the Headless Men, and the backstory behind it is as bizarre as can be. The story takes us back to the early 1900s, when gold prospectors trooped to the area in search of nuggets the size of coins, and loots buried within the depths of the earth. 2 brothers named Willie and Frank McLeod traveled to the Nahanni in 1906, but they soon mysteriously disappeared, never to be seen for the next 2 years. While trappers and hunters propagated stories that the men had come across the largest gold mine ever found in the area, another group of gold prospectors accidentally found what was left of the brothers in the middle of nowhere. The 2 men were found tied to a tree, with their heads missing, but the true cause of their tragic death was never revealed. Although reports began flying around that the third party who embarked on a mission with them was seen trading gold on the Hudson Bay, the man was neither identified nor arrested. But Willie and Frank weren't the last to be brutally murdered within the valley. In 1917, a Swiss prospector named Martin Jorgensen was also found headless, with his cabin burned to the ground. And then in 1945, another unidentified victim was also discovered decapitated, with the rest of his torso left in his sleeping bag. These cases remain unsolved till today, but the local Dean tribe believe the victims were murdered by an evil spirit haunting the valley, constantly searching for lost travelers to feast upon. Ruins of Mesa Verde. Over 1,000 years ago, an ancient tribe known as the Puebloan people, or the Anasazi, crafted their homes on the hillside of the Mesa Verde, a national park in Colorado. Beginning around the year 1000 to 1100 AD, these ancient tribesmen built more than 600 structures, where they lived, stored their foods, and performed several rituals to their gods. In case you're wondering how they accessed their mountaintop dwellings, historians believe they used retractable ladders, some of which can still be seen at the site today. The structures were made of stone, mortar, and plaster, which explains why many of them are still standing after so many years, and you can still find the handprints and fingerprints of the builders forever etched into the walls. In its glory days, the cliff dwellings of Mesa Verde consisted of between 600 to 1,200 rooms, housing about 700 residents. However, The mystery surrounding how the tribe disappeared remains unsolved, as there are no records documenting their hurried exit. And since they left way before the Europeans came, it's unlikely they were chased away by a more advanced civilization. Berwyn Mountain Alien Incident. On the evening of January 23, 1974, local residents of the Berwyn Mountains area in northern Wales reported hearing a loud noise over the area, as a bright light streaked across the sky, leading to wild stories about an alien spacecraft crashing into the remote region. Although this incident is not well reported around the world, it's widely known in the United Kingdom, and is often regarded as the British version of the Roswell incident. Newspaper reports around the country published the news, branding it as the Roswellsh incident, but the British government had a different story to tell. They claimed the noise heard by the residents was generated by an earthquake, and that the bright light came from a meteor flying super close over the Earth's surface. A team of investigators were also sent to explore the scene of the supposed crash, and after conducting a deep search of the entire Berwyn Mountain, they found no evidence supporting the alien spacecraft theory. But with the level of censorship and cover-ups that sometimes accompany alien-related incidents, many believe the government actually recovered alien tech, and probably live specimens, but chose to keep its findings hush-hush. Mongolia's Forbidden Zone, located in the Kenti Imag province of Mongolia, is a mountainous area known as the Ik Korig, or Great Taboo, stretching for 93 square miles. As ordinary as this place may seem at first sight, it is regarded as one of the most mysterious areas in the world, hidden from the outside world for hundreds of years, with its rich history locked behind an unbroken seal. Historians have long believed that this region held the mortal remains of one of the most powerful people to walk this earth, the universal ruler, Genghis Khan, whose empire stretched from the Pacific Ocean into Eastern Europe, encompassing present-day China, Russia, and a vast range of the Middle East. But even with his historical significance, the exact spot where Genghis Khan is buried is a puzzle the world has never been able to solve. It is believed that the ultimate ruler himself specifically asked that he be buried in an anonymous spot in his homeland, without any form of sensationalism. Following his death in the summer of 1227, some legends claim that his burial party traveled for 40 days before burying him at this forbidden zone. The soldiers present at his burial then killed every living thing present, both human and animal, in order to preserve the location of his mortal body. Other stories claim that 1,000 horsemen trampled upon his burial site to obscure it, and then both the horsemen and their horses were killed to keep the grave's location secret. If it's ever found, it could be the most mysterious thing discovered in mountains. This forbidden zone remains shielded from public exploration till today. And although scientists have long established that Genghis Khan may not actually have been buried there, historians believe that precious treasures and ancient artifacts may lay hidden within its depths. Mount Lycaon Sacrifice. Back in 2016, archaeologists exploring the ancient Mount Lycaon in Greece discovered what appeared to be the skeleton of a teenager, who was sacrificed to Zeus. Dated to be about 3,000 years old, the skeleton was found by archaeologist David Gilman Roman and his team from the University of Arizona, and it might be the most convincing evidence that the ancient Greeks practiced human sacrifice. According to the legendary tales surrounding these skeletal remains, the boy's meat was cooked along with sacrificed animals, and anyone who ate it became a wolf for 9 years. The fact that the boy's head was also missing confirmed that the boy may have actually been cannibalized, further adding to the stacks of evidence proving that the Arcadians had a penchant for human sacrifice. Archaeologists also noted that the final resting place was clearly not a cemetery, judging by its structure and its proximity to the Temple of Zeus. However, since no other human bones were found nearby, many believe this was actually an isolated practice. The Gray Man of the Ben Macdui. It's been almost 100 years since Professor John Norman Collie stunned the world with stories of his chilling encounter with a mythical figure while mapping the Ben Macdui Mountain in Scotland. Collie was a highly respected 19th century scientist, explorer, and mountaineer, known for his contributions in the early days of mountaineering. Back in 1925, Collie was invited to speak at the Cairngorm Club in Aberdeen, where he told a haunting story about a climb he made 30 years earlier on Britain's second highest mountain, Kali claimed that while walking from the summit through the mist, he heard a sound of crunching footsteps behind him. But when he looked around, he could see nothing. The footsteps would then continue following him for a distance as he kept walking, sending chills down his spine and prompting him to run for his life. Newspapers picked up the story at the time, and thus the widespread tale of the Big Gray Man of Ben Macdui was born. Other eyewitnesses have also described a huge shape looming up and charging at them as they climbed up the mountain, and although scientists have attempted to explain it away, no one has been able to fully demystify this legendary tale till today. The Black Mountain. Some call it the Australian Bermuda Triangle, while others identify it as Kalkajaka. However, since the 1800s, the mystery surrounding the Black Mountains has inspired both fear and curiosity. Located some 25 kilometers from Cooktown, the Black Mountain has been the site of several unexplained disappearances, with victims numbering into hundreds. Back before the days of modern civilization, the Black Mountain was a sacred battlefield where warring ancestral clans engaged in bloody battles over territory, sworn rivalries, and trade rights. The imposing mountain range consists of massive granite boulders stacked on one another, with stories of explorers vanishing into the boulders without a trace. No one knows why people disappeared in these mountains, but several skeletons have been recovered and identified to be herders and curious visitors who never made it out alive. While a spiritual being has always been blamed for these incidents, recent studies show that these victims may have actually lost their lives due to natural events, attacks by predators, and a lack of communication. According to experts, most of them probably got lost in its depths and never found their way out till they died. Haunted Davlis Cave. Since the 1800s, dozens of paranormal activities have been reported at Davlis Cave, located on Mount Penteli, north of central Athens, Greece. From ghost sightings to stories of electronic devices malfunctioning, explorers have come across some of the spookiest things while traversing this mountain. Legends speak of the cave's link to the mischievous god Pan, claiming that it was responsible for the mysterious phenomena. And archaeologists have excavated several ceramics depicting the god and his nymphs. Some visitors also speak of waters flowing against gravity, small ghostly handprints at the entrance, and cases where tourists have ventured in never to come out. The cave was eventually sealed off in the 1980s by the Greek government, and there are reports that anti-cancer drugs have also been found in the cave, although this has never been confirmed. With cases of satanic cults using the cave for rituals and spiritual activities, it's no wonder many consider it haunted and filled with malevolent spirits. Mountain villages of Wind River Range. To a tourist exploring the Wind River Range of Wyoming, this region doesn't seem like a hospitable place. It's surrounded by glacier-dotted peaks, snowfalls even in August, and the blistering sun burns the skin with no hiding spots in sight. But hundreds of years ago, Native Americans built campsites and prehistoric villages at heights reaching up to 10,000 feet above sea level, and the ruins can still be found there today. One of these remarkable settlements could be the oldest mountain village ever found in North America. At least 19 of these villages have been found sitting on the crest of the North American continent, and archaeologists are still scratching their heads about how they were even built in the first place. To access these peaks, you'd have to travel through steep hills and sloping cliffs where danger lurks at every corner. So it remains a mystery how a whole civilization of people existed here for many years. What remains of their homes can still be found at the tip of the mountain, while the circumstances surrounding their disappearance remain unknown. Box of Jewels. A mountaineer was climbing the French Mont Blanc in 2013 when he noticed a metal box buried beneath the glacier from a distance. Out of curiosity, he picked it up to check what was hidden inside, and was shocked to find a treasure trove of emeralds, rubies, and sapphires. Not willing to keep this news to himself, the mountaineer reported the finding to the authorities, who quickly launched an investigation to determine how the jewels got to the mountain. It would later be determined that the box of jewels had fallen off a plane which crashed into Mont Blanc. However, authorities still had to figure out whether it was from the 1950 crash or the 1966 accident. Prior to this, several pieces of debris, baggage, and human remains have been found from these two crashes. But no one had ever turned in any form of treasure like this one. After careful investigation, it was later determined that the precious stones came from the 1966 flight, which was flying from Mumbai to New York when it crashed and killed the 117 people on board. The stones were later shared between the mountaineer and local authorities, with each receiving a portion worth about $169,000. The Devil's Cave. Behind a local high school football field in the town of Ashland, Williamsburg, Massachusetts, is a cave where the locals believe the devil has been hiding for centuries. Known as the Devil's Cave, this intriguing spot is perched on the edge of a small cliff and was made famous by early colonial settlers, who told spooky stories about seeing demons and the devil himself living within its depths. When these Puritan settlers first arrived in New England, there was widespread paranoia about an ominous presence on the land. However, no evidence of any satanic rituals or paranormal activity has ever been recorded, so it might just be hearsay. What scientists found, however, were materials indicating that the cave was once used by Native Americans. Around the year 2012, the cave gained international attention after Ashland High School attempted to demolish it so they could expand their athletic fields. But thanks to the efforts of the local history society, who fought against the move, the cave has been preserved as an archaeological monument. Treasure Mountain of Colorado. There is a legend about a strange mountain near Summitville, Colorado, where gold prospectors found a vast gold deposit back in the late 1700s, and hundreds of years later, the treasure still hasn't been located. According to the rumors and stories, about 300 Frenchmen and 450 horses left an outpost near present-day Leavenworth, Kansas, on that fateful day, and headed to the Rocky Mountains in search of the Earth's treasures. They would eventually discover a treasure mountain in Mineral County, extracting nearly $33 million in gold by today's standards. They then stacked this loot in 3 different locations and carefully mapped out each spot. However, the Native Americans who lived in the region suddenly launched a brutal attack on the prospectors, leaving only 17 to 35 survivors out of the 300 treasure hunters. They hurriedly buried the gold so they could escape, but by the time the survivors reached civilization, only one man named LeBlanc was left alive. Since then, every attempt to recover the gold deposit has been met with brutal resistance by the local people, leaving only 1 or 2 survivors to tell the stories, and the treasure remains lost till today. Viking Highway. In the wild and rugged terrains of Norway's Jotunheim Mountains lies the Lendbreen Ice Path, located 200 miles northwest of Oslo. But before modern roads were built in the valleys, this rugged mountain pass was a major pathway for the Vikings thousands of years ago. But it wasn't until the summer months of 2011 before archaeologists finally uncovered telltale signs showcasing the state of these roads in ancient times. They found centuries-old horse dung littered all over the ground, and dozens of ancient artifacts melting out of the ice. This includes a 1,700-year-old perfectly preserved tunic, considered to be the oldest piece of clothing ever discovered in Norway, which they believe was discarded by a traveler during a severe case of hypothermia. Archaeologists have also found over 1,000 artifacts including scraps of wool clothing and leather shoes, fragments of sleds, horseshoes, and even walking sticks littering the side of this ancient highway. Historians believe the Lendbreen provided passage for thousands of travelers, farmers, herders, and merchants crossing the 6,300-foot-tall Lomseggen mountain range, although the reason it was abandoned remains a subject of debate. Naupa Iglesia. Situated on the mountainside of a near-vertical gorge in the Andes is a V-shaped entrance, which was sliced into the bedrock to create a shallow door that surprisingly goes nowhere. This intriguing structure also features an additional altar with 3 alcoves, and to add to the intrigue, similar structures have also been spotted in Persia and Egypt, giving rise to conspiracy theories that suggest that this may actually be an interdimensional portal. Known as the Sacred Naupa Iglesia or Naupa Huaca, the doors or windows here supposedly lead to the core of the Earth's electromagnetic currents, which spiritualists believe can trigger the out-of-body experience. Since it's located in one of the most remote regions of Peru, access is extremely limited. But those lucky enough to make the trip speak of feeling palpable energy, which can only be attributed to shamanic rituals. Although it's been many years since this Incan structure was discovered, very little is still known about its origin, history, and purpose. Now it's time for our subscribers' pick. High up a mountain situated in the middle of nowhere is a massive structure etched into the hillside, with mystical powers and a history stranger than fiction. Legends say that this structure is like an interdimensional portal, capable of transporting anyone from anywhere in the world by bending the very fabrics of space and time. Known as one of the most mysterious things discovered in mountains, this enigmatic cave has defied the very laws of science, and its powers are recognized by the local people, who revere the hills for its spiritual significance and historical importance. Join the conversation and share your thoughts on this fascinating discovery in the comments section below. Now, let's get back to the video. Ruins of Timgad. The northern slopes of the Oris Mountains in Algeria is home to an ancient Roman colony known as Timgad, with a rich history dating back to 100 AD. The story takes us back to the times of Emperor Trajan, who founded this settlement, then known as Thamugus, as a base for the Third Augustan Legion. Back in its glory days, Timgad was both a military colony as well as an incentive for the African people willing to serve in the Roman army. Anyone who successfully completed active service for 25 years was promised a home in the colony, which was built and decorated in the exact same fashion as the other homes occupied by the Romans themselves. As a symbol of Roman ingenuity, the original settlement was built in a perfect square, measuring 355 square meters all around, and filled with structures that are still standing till today. Today, visitors exploring the ruins can view the remains of a stunning 2nd century Trajan arch, a 3,500 capacity theater, bath complexes, a library, and what's left of the temples and churches. To preserve its integrity for future generations, the ruins of Timgad was designated a UNESCO heritage site and has become a renowned tourist destination, attracting hundreds of visitors every year. Monument to the Battle of the Nations. In October 1813, one of the biggest battles in the history of mankind raged around the Leipzig city walls. On one side was Napoleon Bonaparte and his allies, and on the other end, there was the allied army of Russia, Prussia, Austria, and Sweden. Both parties were embroiled in a war that would determine the political fate of Europe, and by the time the smoke cleared, Napoleon's forces stood victorious. However, the victory cost them more than 90,000 men, and it marked the beginning of the end of the Napoleonic era. To commemorate this epic battle of nations, a memorial was commissioned to be built on a hill near Leipzig, but the project was delayed so much that it wouldn't be completed until the end of the 19th century. On October 18, 1913, 100 years after this epic war, the gigantic 298 feet high structure was inaugurated as the largest monument in Europe, and it currently towers over the surrounding landscape as a testament to the horrors of the past wars. Geoglyphs in Telangana. A 3,000-year-old geoglyph was recently discovered on the outskirts of Mudichu Thalapalli, in the Medchal Malkajgiri district of Telangana, India. Etched on a low-lying granitoid hillock, this circle geoglyph spans 7.5 meters in diameter and is surrounded by a 30-centimeter wide rim with 2 triangles embedded within. Through carbon dating, archaeologists were able to determine that the structure was made in the Iron Age, specifically 1000 BC, and it was probably used as a model for the megalithic communities in planning their circular burial sites. The site is currently under the protection of the government and the Mudu Chintalapalli village, and is currently being transformed into an archaeological tourist destination to boost the revenue of the surrounding communities. Ancient human remains in the Himalayas. Back in 2010, archaeologists exploring the cliffside caves of the Himalayas in Nepal found the remains of 27 ancient men, women, and children, bearing cut marks that are reminiscent of a popular death ritual. Historians believe the cave was used as a mortuary in ancient times, with at least 67% of the bodies stripped of flesh. According to experts, the cultural practices of the tribes who inhabited the region required that the dead be defleshed with a metal knife, before they were then laid to rest on wide wooden shelves. For 1,500 years, these bones have been neatly stacked, alongside the remains of animals like goats, cows, and horses, which probably served as sacrificial offerings for the dead. But with these human-made caves standing at 13,800 feet above sea level, no one has been able to figure out how these ancient craftsmen crafted spaces into the hillside without modern construction tools and equipment. Strange gadget in Yukon Tombstone Park. David Baudouin, a resident of Dawson City, Yukon, was hiking in Tombstone Territorial Park one fateful day when he decided to derail from the trail a bit and venture into an unmarked part of the mountain. After walking for a few minutes and almost reaching the top of the mountain, he suddenly came across a strange object on the ground. At first, David thought it was an old car battery, but as he observed further, he discovered that the path didn't look like it had been used by a car at any time in the past, so this definitely couldn't be a car battery. The more he studied it, the more he realized the gadget may have only been dropped there recently, and as he would later explain, it looked like it fell out of the sky. Unable to explain what the origin of the gadget was, he decided to take a picture and leave it right where it was. However, since the picture surfaced online, there have been speculations that it may have been the payload of the suspected balloon shot down over the Yukon by fighter jets, although that has still never been confirmed. Thank you for watching. See you in the next one.